Hey, what's going on guys? JTK here. Welcome back to another video. In this video today, we are going to be doing a Minecraft tier list. And these are all the mobs that we have right here to tier list on. As you can see, it is updated to 1.19 because we do have the Warden right here. But yeah, we are going to be ranking these on just how annoying they are. If they are like really annoying, then they're going to probably place a lot lower down. Just also by like how effective and useful they are in terms of like getting drops, if they're useful in a farm, or yeah, just overall how good the mob really is. So yeah, without a further ado, let's just jump right into it. Alright, for our first mob, we're going to go ahead and do the wolf. So with the wolf, it is a very good mob to train and then to just have like a huge bunch of them. It is really fun to do that a lot of the times. You can very quickly get like 100 of these guys just around you, following your every commands and whatnot. But overall, if you're just keeping one, they die like 90% of the time, so there's not really too much point in leaving them. But yeah, overall, I'd say they're good. I like the customization and whatnot with all the wolves and whatnot, but they're not really a practical mob that you really need. So for that reason, I am just gonna put them in the good. And coming up next, we got the bee. Let me try pulling it up here. The bee. So with the bee, we have a pretty good mob. It's very useful in farms and whatnot. You can get a lot of honey blocks and honeycombs. Um, Practicality, it is very useful, but I would say overall not very interesting to compare to the wolf. I would put them on the same tier. I would put the bee just like slightly above it though, but just by one tier because it is just a very useful mob to have if you are like a redstone guy and you like building flying machines and whatnot, but you don't really need them, so to say. They're not really like a necessary mob to have in the world. So yeah, I think good is kind of where it belongs. And the next mob up is gonna be the axolotl. So with the axolotl, um, probably my favorite mob that's been added recently. I think it was added 1.18, and it is similar to the dog in a sense to where you can sort of tame it, but it's a lot easier to tame because you don't need any other items except a bucket, which I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a bucket regardless if you're just playing the game. So I'm gonna place it in the great tier. Um, yeah, I do like the regeneration effect as well. How it plays dead. There's just a lot more mechanics with the axolotl compared to pretty much any of the mobs below it right now. And yeah. All right, coming up next is going to be the bat. Um, Not very useful at all. Very underwhelming. I would say it's probably the least intimidating mob of them all. Whenever it spawns, it's kind of just like, oh, there's a bat. Okay, cool. But yeah, the only really use that it has is to find caves. It's not really useful beyond that point. Just kind of just there most of the time. Nothing really much else to it. I'm gonna put it in the terrible just because it doesn't really serve much of a purpose at all. So yeah, we'll put it in terrible. Next up we have Blazes. Very dangerous mob if you are entering the nether. If you do have fire resistance potions though, they are very manageable. You do need them to beat the game, so they are very practical to use and whatnot. They do have that practical sense to them. You do need the blaze rods. They can also be used to make potions and whatnot. Um, they're also pretty simple to farm as well. Blaze farms aren't too hard to make. I would say overall I'm going to put them in the cool tier. Um, they would have been awesome if they were a little bit less dangerous without those fire resistance potions, but they are a very useful mob and needed to beat the game, so they do belong in the cool tier. And coming up next after that is the cat. The cat, yeah, I'm not really a cat person, so I'm gonna put them in the bad. Um, you can tame them and whatnot. They do scare creepers away, which is a pretty fun mechanic. We used to use them in farms a lot back in the days, but it's easier to just to use a water system to funnel creepers down on a farm. Not very practical use, just not as customizable, and I just don't like them much compared to the wolf counterparts. So yeah, I'll put them in the bad tier. And then after that, we do have the cave spider. If you're in one of those underground mine shafts, they can be really annoying because there's just spawners everywhere. Very annoying. You don't really use them much for XP farms. because it's better to just use like a skeleton spawner or pretty much any other spawner in the game. Overall, I'm gonna put them in bad, right behind cats. Um, yeah, I don't really see much of a use to them. They are just very annoying. They also poison you as well, which sucks. Very dangerous in that sense, but yeah, don't really serve much of a purpose. Plus, they're pretty annoying, so I'd put them in the bad tier. All right, next up on our list is going to be the Charged Creeper. Um, Compared to its Creeper counterpart, the Charged Creeper is very useful to get mob heads and whatnot if you use it to destroy other mobs. It can be very useful in that sense. There used to be a glitch on Bedrock Edition to where you can get like a ton of Wither Skulls if you were to blow up a stray in the Nether, but they patched that so it's not as useful as what it was before. But they're very highly dangerous as well. Like you're pretty much guaranteed dead if one of them blows up next to you. So very dangerous. But I do like the fact that you can get like a lot of skulls and whatnot from like zombies and skeletons and other mobs as well. So for that, I'm gonna place it just right above the B tier, the good tier, I mean, and just right above the B. So next up we have the zombie chicken. Nah, we'll skip that one. We'll do the chicken, just the normal chicken. The chicken, it's a great mob to have. I do like how it can drop eggs. It's the only mob in the game that just randomly drops something periodically throughout time. And it's very useful to have those eggs as well because you can use it to make a chicken farm. Chicken is a very good food source to have. It also drops feathers, which can be used to make arrows. Overall, it's a great mob. I'll put it right behind the Oxalotl though, just because it's not that useful or unique. It's a mob that just came with the game as soon as it first launched, so it's not going to be that high up there. And next we have the Cod. Very boring mob. It drops bones on, I think, Bedrock Edition. I'm not sure about Java, but it does drop bones on Bedrock, which can be useful sometimes, but I mean, overall, it is just a very meh kind of mob. I wouldn't say they're bad, though. I would say they're like the bottom of good. You can use them to get fish as well, so it's a decent food source, I guess, but not something I'm going to go out of my way to get. And next one, we have cow. So with the cow, it's a very useful mob. I would say more useful than the chicken because it does drop a better food source, which is beef. It also drops leather, which can be used to make a wide variety of things like books, armor. You can also make like item frames. Overall, the cow is very useful. I would say more useful than the chicken, but not compared to the Oxalotl. Yeah, the cow is just a very all-around good mob to have. I usually always farm them first out of all the passive mobs, so yeah, that's kind of where the cow belongs. Alright, and next up on our list we have the classic creeper. Creepers are used to get gunpowder, which, if you're a late game player, is really useful to build rockets, so you can use the elytra and fly around the map pretty much anywhere you want. They can be dangerous, but if you are in the late game, they're really not. I would say like early game, they're like low tier, but towards the late game, they are a lot more manageable and actually like really fun to farm and whatnot. Overall, I would say cool. I'm going to put them at the bottom of cool tier though, because they are just like Minecraft's iconic mob as well. So it would be very shameful to put them anything below the cool. And yeah, that's the creeper. Next up, we have dolphin. Dolphins, they have some cool mechanics, like you can use some wheat, and they can give you some, I forgot what the effect was called, but it makes you like swim underwater faster, and they can take you to shipwrecks and whatnot. Cool mechanic, not very useful though. I will put them above the chicken in the great tier. I do like them a lot. They're pretty cool to have, but overall, just not something that I'm going out of my way to find when I'm looking for shipwrecks or wanting to move faster in the ocean. So for that reason, I'm going to put them in the great tier. And next up, we have, is that the donkey or the mule? I think that's the donkey. Not too much of a difference between Donkey and Mule. Um, they're kind of just like rideable mobs. Compared to the horse, not one that I particularly like that much. They can carry around chest and stuff, carry all your loots, but not entirely useful. I'll put them in good right behind the charge creeper. I think that's a good spot for them. Yeah, overall, they do have some uses, but not amazing in any sense. Alright, and coming up next on our list, we have the Elder Guardian. One of our first mobs kind of on here. That's a boss. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like these guys. They kind of blow, and kind of the main reason I don't like exploring the underwater monuments and whatnot. They give you mining fatigue for what seems like 50 minutes, and overall they're just not very rewarding when you kill them either. One of my least favorite mobs, and I'm gonna put them in super terrible. I just do not like these guys whatsoever. And yeah. Next up, we have the Ender Dragon, and by far the most iconic mob in like gaming in general. Uh, Definitely the most iconic boss, and is the end boss once you are reaching towards the end. And it is a great final boss if you are speedrunning, or if you just done it like a ton of times in the past. Then it is actually very easy to do. But if you're new to it, it can be very intimidating. It does give you a huge reward with a lot of XP, and then it also opens up the portals so that you can explore like the rest of the end dimension. And it is kind of the gateway to late game loot, and for that, I think it's going to be our first awesome tier. Next up, we have the Endermite. Really only has one purpose. It's used in an Enderman farm. That's not very useful. But other than that, it's very hard to get. You have to throw like a ton of ender pearls to get one. They're just annoying. They're pretty much just silver fish, but purple. And yeah, I'm gonna put them right above the bat and terrible because they do serve one purpose, but I don't know. It's no reason to go out of your way to try and get one. Next up, we have the Drowned, and the Drowned, it's pretty much just a zombie that swims underwater. And yeah, other than that, it does come with a few cool mechanics. If you get a maxed out what is it called? Underwater conduit. If you get a maxed out conduit, then they can actually die when they get near it, which is pretty cool. Other than that, though, the only other difference is that their drops are actually pretty cool. They drop the tridents, which is very useful and can be used in like a lot of farms to kill mobs and whatnot. They also drop copper, which I guess is useful, but it's easier to just mine it than farm it. And they also drop conduit shells, which can be used to build the conduit. For that though, I think they are very useful. I'm gonna put them right above the charged creeper on this list. Um, yeah, they are a good mob. It's just not very original in the sense of it's just a zombie that swims. And next up, we have the Illager. And with the Illager, um, very, very annoying mob to go against in raids. They spawn the Vex, which can be very annoying to deal with sometimes. Probably one of the worst mobs are the Vex. But the Illagers themselves are actually very cool. They have like this magic attack where they summon like sharks out of the ground or something like that. They also drop a really good drop, that being the Totem of Undying. And I think that alone puts it in the great tier because the Totem is one of the best drops in the game by far. Alright, and coming up next on our list, we have the Ghast. Fun fact, the sound of these guys was actually taken from one of the developers' cats. I forgot which developer, I think it was Jeb, but it's the sound of the gas is actually from the cat, I think, crying or sleeping. And he made it just sound very horrifying. The noise alone puts it down here somewhere near terrible. Other than that, though, it does drop gunpowder, which can be useful. It also drops gas tiers, which they have their purpose, but they're not that useful. Gas farms, they're not too annoying to make. For that, I think their use is going to put them up on the top of bad. They can be really annoying though when you don't want to deal with them, and if you're like bridging out in the nether and then a ghast just like flies over you, it can be the most horrifying experience ever. But yeah, other than that though, they're not horrible, but they aren't good either. Next up, we have the glow squid, and very disappointing mob. It seems that every time the community votes on a mob, they vote for the worst one. And the glow squid was definitely the worst they could have voted for because everyone thought that it was actually going to have like a glow effect and be the first mob with that unique effect, but it's not. It just looks like it glows. And for just how disappointing it is, I'm going to put it in super terrible, just right below the Elder Guardian. Uh, yeah, they also drop glow ink sacs, which useless drop pretty much. It's only useful if you're like a really artsy person and you're trying to design cool signs and whatnot. But other than that, not really a good mob. Alright, and next up we have the Fox. One of my personal favorites. I think he's pretty cute, but not entirely useful. He has some cool mechanics, like he can pick stuff up and then he jumps really high, dives his face into the snow. All pretty cool stuff, but not really useful. I'm gonna put them at the bottom of good, because they are pretty cute animals and whatnot, and they're kind of like dogs in a sense, but they don't really serve much of a purpose, and you can't really tame them, so they're not anything too special either. Alright, and coming up next, we have the normal guardian. And now the normal guardian, um, definitely a lot better than the elder guardian because they don't give you mining fatigue. Guardian farms are a really good way to get XP and fish, and then a lot of the prismarine blocks like prismarine lanterns, just prismarine blocks, dark prismarine as well. It's really good farm, really good mob, pretty unique. I would say I'm gonna put it in great right behind the Oxalotl. I think that's a good placement for it. They can be a little annoying sometime in large numbers, but other than that though, they're actually fairly manageable. Alright, and next up we have the Hoglin. Came out with another update. These guys, they drop a lot of pork chops. Um, don't really ever build a farm with them. I don't really find much of a use besides them dropping pork chops and then leather as well. They are like the cows of the nether, but they are hostile. So I'm going to put them in great right behind the cow because they're pretty much the same, but it's just more annoying to deal with hoglins than cows. So for that reason, I'm going to put it right behind the cow. Alright, and next up we have the basic horse. Uh, Very useful to traverse the map in the early game when you don't have an elytra or anything. Very useful for that. Um, Other than that though, it kind of has the same function as a mule or a donkey where you can put a chest on it. And you can also strap armor on the horses too, which is pretty cool. For those uses, I'm going to put it right above the horse in good. I don't really ever use horses too much. Like sometimes I'll pick one out, but then he ends up just sitting in a cage for the rest of his life because like as soon as I get the elytra, I just never use them again. So yeah, I think great is where he belongs. Alright, and next up we have the Iron Golem. Iron Golem, he's a very cool mob in terms of farms. Definitely like a must-have farm for any survival world. So for that, I'm going to put him right above the creeper just for his usefulness. He can be really dangerous though if you attack some villagers or find a way to trigger him. Then yeah, he can be very dangerous to deal with. But if you're using him in farms, he is actually like a very useful mob to have. And possibly the best farm in the entire game, honestly. Alright, and next up we have the llamas. So with the llamas, I don't know, there's not too much special about them. They spawn with wandering traders, which makes me hate them like a little bit more. But other than that though, they're not horrible. They do spit on you, which can be annoying sometimes. They're not too useful. I end up just kind of killing them to get some leather from time to time, but other than that though, there's no farm for them specifically. They don't really serve much of a purpose, and for that, I'm going to put them at the bottom of bad. Yeah, just don't serve much of a purpose and can sometimes just be a little annoying. So yeah, I think bad is kind of where that belongs. And next up we have the Magma Cube. Um, I think this is gonna be another really bad mob, but yeah, the Magma Cubes are very annoying to deal with in the Nether. They spawn in that one bastion that makes that has like the spawners of them everywhere, and that can be really annoying to deal with. The farm isn't really that useful either. Like you get magma cubes, which don't really are used for much, if not anything. Like you can build fire resistance potions, which are somewhat useful, or you can just build magma cube blocks, which again are somewhat useful but not really. I find them more annoying and not really worth building the farms for them. So I'm going to put them in bad right above the llama. I think is where those belong. And next up we have the mushroom. The mushroom, it's a very good mob. I would say it is better than the cow because you can get an empty bowl and you can use it to get pretty much like an infinite source of mushroom stew. So it's like if you're really struggling in the world or if you spawn on one of these islands, then it is very useful to have. But other than that though, it is basically just a cow. So for that, I'm going to put it in great right above the cow just because of that one feature where you can get pretty much like infinite food almost. Alright, and next up we have the Enderman. Um, the Enderman can be really annoying to deal with sometimes, but yet again, you can just build like a 2 block area and then just hide underneath it. And you can take care of these guys pretty fairly easily. Their farms are pretty good for XP and whatnot. They do drop a very important drop that's used to get to the end. So I think for that, I'm going to put them in cool right above the Iron Golem. Because with these two mobs like the Blaze and the Enderman, you do need them to get to the awesome boss up here. But yeah, if they didn't have those features, I would probably put them a little bit lower. But yeah, for those features, I think they do belong in the cool. Alright, coming up next, we have the Piglin Brute. When Bastions were first released, these guys didn't exist. And Bastions were almost completely a peaceful place. Like, you could just wear gold armor and then just walk in and not have to worry about anything. But these guys, they hammer hard and they make the Bastions almost like a death zone to go into. Which, fair enough, there is loot in there that can be useful, like some rare music discs and whatnot. But they do make the place just a lot more annoying to search through sometimes, especially because they do drop a good amount of XP, but not like a lot. And they only drop their axe when you kill them, so they're not really useful in terms of drops. I'm going to put them in bad right above the Magma Cube, just because they don't really serve much of a purpose except to make Bastions harder. But yeah, other than that, they're not the best of any mobs. But their counterparts, the normal piglins, are going straight up to cool on the top. Piglins, I really like making the piglin farms because you can get so many different resources that aren't renewable, like quartz and gravel, blackstone, obsidian. Just make a gold farm and then trap one of these guys in a 1x1 area, and you can farm a lot of useful non-renewable resources. And for that purpose alone, they go on the top of cool because you could just get so many different types of resources with them, and they're fairly easy to deal with as well. Like, you could just put on gold armor and then they're not really much of an issue. And yeah, for that I think they belong in the cool tier. Alright, coming up next on our list, we have the Ocelot. Now, I'm pretty sure this is still able to tame. I just never tame them. I usually just get cats from villages and tame those. I'm not entirely sure about ocelots though. I never really see them when I'm at a jungle. Uh, they're not like bad though. I would say they're like right behind foxes and good. Like, you can tame them. They pretty much are just cats. But I find these guys a lot cooler than cats because they are like more of a wild animal than something more domestic. So yeah, I'm going to put them at the bottom of good. Nothing special about them, but nothing really bad either. And next up we have parrots. Now, I have a gripe with parrots. I have a farm currently on my server that has a huge parrot problem because I built it in the jungle and it uses nether portals, and parrots will spawn right on top of the portals, and then as soon as I walk through it, there will be like 50 parrots on the other side of the portal. So it's more like a parrot farm. But yeah, they're pretty cool. I like how you can tame them and then they sit on your shoulder. They can be scary though sometimes too because they do make like the sounds of creeper, and it can be like a huge troll because you think there's a creeper behind you, but then you just realize it's a parrot. Um, Overall though, I think they're bad, but I want to put them at the top of bad. They're bad, but they're not like horribly bad. They're just kind of there for the most part. And plus, I do have that gripe with them where they're just spawning everywhere around my farms and whatnot. Alright, next up we have the panda. Now the panda does have one farm to go with it. It's a slime farm, but it's so ridiculously complex to make that it's not really useful. It's better to just find a slime chunk and then just get slimes that way. Um, Overall though, the pandas are pretty cool. I like all the different variants with them, but they're not entirely useful. It's mostly that's like how most of the jungle mobs are. They're there, but they're not really useful. I'm gonna put it right above the axolotl in the good tier. But yeah, I think that's about as much recognition it's gonna get. Alright, and next up we have the Wither Skeleton. The Wither Skeleton, it's a great mob because you do need it to get the Wither, which is one of the bosses. They also drop coal, bones, and then their stone swords too. Which the coal and bones are actually very useful. You can build a farm with these guys, and you can get a lot of coal to have like a fuel source as a farm, pretty much. And I think it's the only mob on this list that has like that ability to do that. And overall, they are just a very useful mob to have, and you do need them to get one of the bosses. So I'm gonna put them right behind the Iron Golem in the cool tier. Alright, next up we have the Wither himself. Now on Bedrock Edition, Wither on Bedrock is a whole nother beast. He can easily destroy pretty much anyone on this list, I'm pretty sure. I've died multiple times to him on Bedrock, and he's not a fun boss to deal with on Bedrock. On Java though, he is fairly handleable and whatnot. He does drop the Nether Star, which is probably one of the best drops in the game with the Illager. And for that, I'm going to put it right at the bottom of cool. Because of that Bedrock version, though, he is very, very difficult to kill. And sometimes it doesn't really feel worth trying to get the Nether Star from him. But his drop is very useful, and he is a very unique boss as well. So I think cool is a great tier for him. Alright, next up on our list, we have the pig. Now, with the pig, he is like the main passive mob, like the face of passive mobs in Minecraft. He drops pork, not too much experience, not really usable much in farms. I think for that, I'm going to put him at the top of good. He's just a cute, friendly mob to just have around sometimes. You can also ride him, which is cool, I guess, but I don't know, he's not really usable. Alright, and next up we have the Zombie Villager. Now, Zombie Villager is very useful in the sense that you can cure him and get the villager traits discounted. For that purpose, I'm going to put him at the top of cool because, yeah, getting your discounts on villager trades is definitely like a must-have, especially after the Village and Pillage update. Like, villagers are a must-have for any bases, and zombie villagers are going to be a part of that, so I think the top of cool is definitely where those guys belong. Alright, and coming up next on our list, we have the Zombie Piglin. Now, the Zombie Piglin has grown on me as a boss because it is used in gold farms for Bedrock now, like a lot, and it is very effective gold farms, and gold is used for a lot of villager trades. It's also used for the Piglin trades as well, and I think for that reason it does deserve a spot. I would say right above the Iron Golem, especially for Bedrock Edition. Like, the gold farms are just ridiculously overpowered, and they give you a ton of XP too. So yeah, I think for that reason it does belong in the cool tier, just right above the Iron Golem though. Alright, and next up we have the Illager. I think that's one of the Illagers. Um, yeah, I would say the Illager isn't one of my favorites. Their crossbow, I don't know why, but it just seems like they can pull their crossbow back a lot faster than I can. But in raids they can be kind of annoying. They end up just dropping their crossbows, not much XP either. Overall though, I would say they're bad, but they're pretty cool sometimes. So I'm gonna put them at the top of bad. Alright, and next up we're gonna do the Ravager. Um, Another not so favorite mob in the raids. Probably one of my least favorites. I would say the Vex is my least favorite, but the Ravager is up there. Um, he's very strong, has a lot of health. He destroys everything he walks through, which can be annoying if your village is next to a house or something, or a raid's happening and he just breaks apart everything. Uh, and yeah, he only drops a saddle, so for that, I'm gonna put him at the top of terrible. Not too bad, but yeah, not one of my favorites either. Alright, now we have the Shulker. The Shulker box, he is very useful late game for the Shulker boxes, but they can be a little annoying sometimes if you're just trying to transverse the cities and then you get launched like 500 feet up in the air because they give you the levitation effect. But they are very useful in terms of drops. I'm going to put them right above the Oxalotl in Great. Also, just they're because like they're just a very good mob in general, and they're very creative. Like, I don't know, something like that doesn't really exist or come up creatively in the real world. So for that, I'm gonna put it just right behind the Illager in Great. All right, and next up we have the regular zombie. Overall, just a good, iconic mob. I wouldn't say he's as good as the Charged Creeper or the Drowned. I would say he is more iconic than horses, though. They have a chance of dropping iron, which can be pretty cool. They also drop like different types of fruits and whatnot. But you're mainly just gonna get rotten flesh when you do kill him. So for that, I'm gonna put him just right above the horse. Um, yeah, the next one we have the Witch. The Witch, very useful in different kinds of farms. Um, they can be a little annoying sometimes, but they're fairly manageable. The only thing that's really annoying about them is that they give you the poison effect. But other than that, though, they are very useful in farms. They drop you sticks, they give redstone, sugar, bottles, a lot of useful stuff. I'm gonna put them in Great, right above the Shulkers. Alright, and next up on our list, we have the Pufferfish. Pufferfish, not really useful. Only really useful if you're trolling your friends and you try to want to kill them really quick. You can like stack a bunch of them together and they kill really fast. Other than that though, they only drop Pufferfish, which is only useful for water breathing potions, which are useful, but not anything particularly good comes out when you find a Pufferfish. So for that, I'm going to put them at the top of bad, just right above the Illager. And next up, we have the Polar Bear. Another one of those not useful but cute mobs. Kind of in line with the rest of the bears, like the panda bear. And yeah, nothing too much to them. They only have like one unique mechanic, which is like the parent defense thing, where if you try to attack one of their children, then they attack you. Other than that, though, they don't really drop anything. I'm gonna put them at the bottom of good because they're not bad. They can be friendly too sometimes as well, so not too much to do with the polar bear. Alright, next up we have slimes. Now, slimes, in terms of farms, they are very good. Slime farms, obviously, you can use it for a lot of redstone machines, specifically flying machines as well, which are very useful. They're also pretty cool to have, especially the small slimes because they don't do any damage. They'll just follow you around the place. I would say overall they're a great mob. I'll put them at the top of great just because of the small slimes as well. Alright, and next up we have the skeleton. Alright, so with the skeleton, not one of my favorite mobs. I would like it more if it missed from time to time with its arrows, but every time I go up against one of these things, it seems like they have aimbot. Um, yeah, they do have some useful jobs though. They do drop bones, which are used for bone meal. Having a all-purpose mob farm like skeletons is one of those good drops to have. They also drop arrows, which can be pretty useful. Um, Overall though, I don't like the mechanic of how they just like beam you down every time I run into one of them. So for that, I'm gonna put them at the top of bad. They do have useful drops, but yeah, yet again, they are very annoying sometimes. Alright, next up we have the squid. Um, Nothing too special with the squid. They drop ink sacs, which can be used for black dye. Really rare dye to get because you can only get them from ink sacs from squids, or you can get them from wither skeletons. I mean, when the wither destroys something like a mob, that's like the other way you can get it is from wither roses. Sorry. Um, Other than that though, squids, eh, I'll put them at the bottom of good. It's another one of those mobs where they're just kind of there. They're not bad, but they're not great either. Alright, next up we have the Striders. Um, it's kind of the lava boat we all wanted, but in mob form, which is pretty cool. I never end up really using them though. Plus, they don't really drop too much useful things. They drop string. I like the mechanics where they like freeze to death when they're uh in like normal weather, and then they're just like chilling when they're in lava. That's pretty cool. Overall though, I think its only real use is for the riding mechanic where you can get around the map really easily. Um, yeah, for that, I'm gonna put it right in front of the wolf in the good category. They do have their purpose, but they're not that useful. Alright, and next up we have the strays. Pretty much just a skeleton, but they shoot slow arrows and drop slow arrows. Um, yeah, there's not too much else to say about that. Um, they did have a glitch before where you could kill them in the nether with a charged creeper and they dropped wither skulls. I'm pretty sure it's been patched, but if that glitch was still in existence, they'd probably be up here in cool. But I'm pretty sure the glitch was patched for bedrock, so I'm going to put them in bad right in front of the skeletons. They are pretty interchangeable. Alright, and coming up next on our list, we have spiders. Similar to the cave spiders, but they don't give you the poison effect. So for that, I'm going to put them in good. I would put them right above. I'll put them above the bees. Yeah, they drop string, which is useful. Spider eyes, which is also pretty useful for weakness potions. Um, Other than that, though, kind of just a basic base mob with the game. Not too much with them. Next up, we have villagers. Okay, so with villagers, before Village and Pillage update, they would be down here near bad. After Village and Pillage, I'll put them in awesome. Yeah, just the trades alone, there's so much you can do with that. Like, so many renewable resources are now like available with the villagers that it doesn't feel right to put them anywhere else. Plus, they're using the iron farms, so yeah, definitely an awesome tier. All right, next up we have the Vindicators, Johnnies, as the game likes to call them. They do a lot of damage if you're not careful with them. But overall, they kind of just drop the same stuff as the Illager down here. But instead of dropping a crossbow, they drop their axe instead. Overall, though, again, nothing too interesting about any of the raid bosses or anything. So I'm going to put them right above the Illager. Alright, we're almost done with the list here in a bit. I know we have a lot of mobs in the game. I kind of underestimated this a bit, but if you can, leave a like, subscribe, really helps out a lot. But anyways, let's finish off with the rest of these mobs that are down here. I'm only gonna go up to the Warden. I don't think any of these mobs down here you want to think of past the Warden, because like some of them are modded, like this weird Ghast, and then there's also just like other stuff based off of other mobs. So we're just gonna go up to the Warden. But anyways, next up on the list we have the Zombie Hoglin. Um, Not really useful. Kind of just destroys everything. Yeah, I would say he's the top of bad because he is cool. You can use him in pretty much any farm to kill the mobs, but not really useful in a practical sense for any loot and whatnot. And next up we have the Rabbit. The Rabbit, kind of just your basic mob. Um, he is used to get leather, but in a very inefficient way. He's also used for rabbits, like the normal meat, and then rabbit stew. Not really great food sources, but not bad food sources either. Um, Also just a Q mob in general, so I'm gonna put him right behind the bee. I think that's a fair point for him. Then we have salmon. Yeah, kind of just the cod, but I like the colors on the salmon better, so I'll put it right above the cod and good. And next up, we have the sheep. Another just classic passive mob in the game. Um, I would say the sheep has a lot more going for it in terms of passive mobs because you do get wool. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of cool because of that. The wool is just a really good thing to have. And they also drop mutton, which I guess is a pretty decent food source, but you're mainly just using sheep for the wool. They can get a bit annoying sometimes, which isn't why they're higher, but they are useful for that sense. Next up we have the skeleton horses, which when you get close to them, they do spawn like a trap and have like the whole skeleton army effect thing around them. Overall though, you do get them afterwards when you kill the skeletons riding on the horses, and on Bedrock Edition you don't need a saddle to ride them. So they are just horses, but just a little bit better because they can also breathe underwater. So for that, I'm gonna put them right above the normal horse. And oh yeah, I also added the husk right here, just right behind the zombie and good. They're pretty much the same. Alright, I've been talking about this one a lot. The Vex. Worst mob in the game. By far. They fly around. They go through walls. They don't drop anything. They're just annoying. And next up, we have the Sea Turtle. Now with the Sea Turtle, um, they're only really useful for that one armor piece, like the turtle helmet. Other than that though, they're kind of just cool to look at sometimes. I'll put them at the bottom of good. And oh boy. If I if the villagers are in awesome tier, the wandering trader is way below that. I would put it one tier right above the Vex. They're just annoying. They spawn randomly and sporadically. Nothing really cool about them either. They kind of just suck. Plus their trades are laughably bad. So yeah, I think super terrible. Just right above the Vex is where those belong. And last but not least, I wanted to save this one for last because it's the most recent like boss we've got in the game, the Warden. Um, has the most health in the game. By far the most unique mob we've ever seen added into Minecraft. He's guarding like the ancient like ruins and whatnot. I forgot what they were called, but pretty cool place for them to spawn. They can be incredibly hectic and horrifying. Uh, I don't know, with their mechanics though, I think I'm gonna put them at the bottom of awesome. I think that's just kind of like the new mob effect, but I do really like the Warden mechanics. I think it is a great mob, and I like how Mojang's trying to think outside the box when it comes to just killing mobs as people would normally do. Like with the Warden, it's not a simple mob that you could just walk up to and kill. Alright, and that's gonna do it for this tier list. Um, Another long one, a lot longer than the zombies one. I haven't edited yet, so I'm not entirely sure about that. But I don't know, this one took quite a while to make. So if you did enjoy, please like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Because yeah, I do like making videos. I am waiting to get a capture card so I can do more gameplay commentary type stuff. But yeah, for now I do like making these tier list videos. If you want to see more, just let me know. And yeah, thanks for watching.